The invitation. Elon Musk, the enigmatic billionaire known for his ventures into space, electric cars, and neural technology, received an unexpected invitation to appear on the Late Night Show with David Carter, a popular talk show in the United States. David Carter, the host, was known for his sharp wit and ability to make even the most reserved guests open up. Elon, intrigued by the opportunity to share his latest projects, accepted the invitation. The stage was set for what would become one of the most memorable episodes in the show's history. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, I'd like to take a moment to ask for your support. If you like this story so far, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. This story is just getting started, and trust me, it will only get more exciting as it progresses. By subscribing to the channel, you'll never miss a chapter, and you'll be the first to know when new stories are released. Click the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's go on this journey together. And now back to the story. As Elon walked onto the set, the audience erupted in applause. David greeted him with a warm smile and a firm handshake. "Elon, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you here," David said, gesturing for Elon to take a seat. Elon, ever the visionary, replied, "Thank you, David. The honor is mine. I've always admired your ability to ask the right questions." The audience chuckled, and the interview began. The first question. David started with a light-hearted question. "So, Elon, you've been busy lately. Between SpaceX, Tesla, and Neuralink, how do you find time to sleep?" Elon smiled and leaned back in his chair. "Sleep is overrated, David. But seriously, I find time because I believe in what I'm doing. It does not work when you're passionate about it." The audience nodded in agreement, and David laughed. "Fair point. But don't you ever worry about burning out?" Elon paused, his expression turning thoughtful. "Sometimes. But then I think about the future and the impact we can have. Keeps me going." David, sensing a deeper conversation, decided to steer the interview in a more personal direction. "Speaking of the future, Elon, what drives you? What's the one thing that keeps you pushing forward?" Elon looked directly at David, his gaze intense. "Curiosity, David. The desire to understand and explore, but also the need to make a difference. Don't you ever feel that?" David hesitated, caught off guard by the question. "I suppose I do, but it's not always easy to keep that fire alive." A shift in tone. Elon's response seemed to linger in the air, creating an unexpected tension. David, usually in control of the conversation, felt a shift. He decided to lighten the mood. "Well, Elon, let's talk about something fun. What's the craziest idea you've ever had that actually worked?" Elon chuckled. "Oh, there are too many to count. But I'd say sending a Tesla into space was pretty wild." The audience laughed, and David joined in. "That was definitely a moment for the history books. But what about the ones that didn't work? Any regrets?" Elon's expression softened. "Regrets? Not really. Every failure is a lesson. But sometimes, I wonder if I've sacrificed too much along the way." David, intrigued, leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Elon sighed. "Time with family, friends. The things that truly matter. Success can be isolating, David. Do you ever feel that way?" David's smile faltered. He hadn't expected the conversation to take such a personal turn. "I think we all do at times. The weight of success." The audience, sensing the shift in tone, grew quiet. David, usually the one asking the questions, found himself on the receiving end. Elon continued, his voice calm but probing. "You've been doing this for years, David. Talking to people, sharing their stories. But who listens to yours?" David's eyes widened, and he struggled to find the right words. "I guess I've never thought about it that way." Elon nodded, his gaze unwavering. "It's easy to get lost in the spotlight, to forget about the person behind the persona. But at the end of the day, we're all just human, aren't we?" David's hands trembled slightly as he gripped the edge of his desk. "I suppose we are," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. The audience, captivated by the exchange, held their breath. A moment of vulnerability. Elon, sensing David's discomfort, softened his tone. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, David. I just think it's important to reflect on these things. We spend so much time chasing success. But what are we really chasing?" David looked down, his mind racing. He had always prided himself on his ability to remain composed, but Elon's words struck a chord. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice cracking. The audience, sensing the raw emotion, remained silent. Elon leaned forward, his expression one of genuine concern. It's okay to not have all the answers, David. Sometimes the most important thing is to ask the questions. David nodded, tears welling up in his eyes. I think I've been avoiding those questions for a long time, he confessed. The unraveling. The studio was eerily quiet as David struggled to regain his composure. Elon, ever the observer, gave him a moment before speaking again. You've spent years making others feel seen and heard, David. But who's doing that for you? David wiped his eyes, his voice trembling. I don't know. I guess I've never really thought about it. Elon's gaze was steady, his words deliberate. Maybe it's time you did. We all need someone to lean on, even those of us who seem to have it all together. David nodded, his usual confidence replaced by a raw vulnerability. I think you're right, he said, his voice barely audible. The audience, moved by the exchange, began to applaud softly, offering their support. A shared humanity. Elon, sensing the need to lighten the mood, smiled gently. You know, David, I didn't come here to make you cry. But sometimes, a little vulnerability is a good thing. It reminds us that we're all in this together. David chuckled through his tears, nodding in agreement. You're right, Elon. I think I needed this. The audience, sensing the shift, began to relax. Elon leaned back in his chair, his tone lighter. So, David, let's talk about something fun. What's the most memorable moment you've had on this show? David, grateful for the change in topic, smiled. There have been so many. But I think the time I interviewed a surprise guest who turned out to be my childhood hero was pretty special. A glimpse behind the curtain. As David shared his story, Elon listened intently, his expression one of genuine interest. That sounds incredible, David. It's moments like those that remind us why we do what we do. Isn't it? David nodded, his smile returning. It is, but I think what you said earlier is true. We all need to take a step back and reflect on what truly matters. Elon's eyes sparkled with curiosity. And what matters to you, David? Beyond the show, beyond the fame, what's your driving force? David paused, his mind racing. I think it's the connections I make, the stories I get to tell, but also the impact I can have on people's lives. Elon nodded, his expression thoughtful. That's a powerful thing, David. Never underestimate the power of a single conversation. The ripple effect. The conversation continued, each question and answer revealing a deeper layer of both men's personalities. The audience, captivated by the exchange, hung on every word. Elon, ever the provocateur, asked, do you ever think about the legacy you'll leave behind? David? David's eyes widened, the weight of the question settling on his shoulders. I suppose I do, but it's not something I like to dwell on. Elon leaned forward, his gaze intense. Why not? Legacy is important. It's what we leave behind for future generations. Don't you want to be remembered for something meaningful? David hesitated, his mind racing. I do, but I think I've been so focused on the present that I haven't given much thought to the future. A moment of reflection. Elon's words lingered in the air, creating a moment of introspection. David, usually the one guiding the conversation, found himself reflecting on his own life and choices. I think you've given me a lot to think about, Elon, he admitted, his voice soft. Elon smiled gently. That's all any of us can do, David. Reflect, learn, and grow. The future is shaped by the choices we make today. The audience, moved by the exchange, erupted into applause. David, wiping away a tear, smiled. Thank you, Elon. This has been one of the most meaningful conversations I've ever had. The power of connection. As the interview continued, the dynamic between Elon and David shifted. No longer just interviewer and interviewee, they became two individuals sharing a moment of genuine connection. Elon, ever the visionary, asked David, if you could change one thing about the world, what would it be? David paused, his mind racing. I think I'd want to create more empathy. So many of the world's problems stem from a lack of understanding. If we could just see things from each other's perspectives, I think we'd be in a much better place. Elon nodded, his expression thoughtful. That's a powerful idea, David. Empathy is the foundation of progress. A shared vision. The conversation flowed effortlessly, each question and answer revealing a deeper layer of understanding. David, feeling more at ease, asked, Elon, what's next for you? What's the next big thing on the horizon? Elon's eyes sparkled with excitement. There's so much on the horizon, David. From Mars colonization to advancing AI, the possibilities are endless. But I think the most important thing is to keep pushing boundaries, to keep exploring. David nodded, his smile returning. It's inspiring to hear your passion. I think we could all learn from your drive. The impact of words. As the interview drew to a close, Elon turned to David with a final question. David, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be? David paused, his mind racing. I think I'd tell myself to slow down, to appreciate the journey rather than just focusing on the destination. Life is about the moments in between, the connections we make along the way. Elon nodded, his expression one of approval. That's great advice, David. I think we could all benefit from that reminder. A new perspective. The audience, moved by the exchange, erupted into applause. David, feeling a renewed sense of purpose, smiled. Thank you, Elon. This has been an incredible conversation. I think we've all learned a lot from you tonight. Elon, ever humble, replied, Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure. Remember, the future is what we make of it. Let's make it a good one. The audience, inspired by his words, rose to their feet in a standing ovation. The aftermath. As the show ended and the lights dimmed, David sat in silence, reflecting on the conversation. Elon's words had struck a chord, leaving him with a newfound sense of clarity. He realized that sometimes the most powerful moments come from the most unexpected places. A new beginning. The next day, David woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. He decided to take Elon's advice to heart, vowing to slow down and appreciate the journey. He began to make changes in his life, focusing on the things that truly mattered. The ripple effect. David's newfound perspective began to influence those around him. His friends and family noticed the change, and soon they too began to reflect on their own lives. The ripple effect of Elon's words had begun to spread, touching the lives of countless individuals. A legacy in the making. As the days turned into weeks, David found himself thinking more about the legacy he wanted to leave behind. He realized that it wasn't about fame or success, but about the impact he could have on others. He began to use his platform to share stories of hope and resilience, inspiring his audience to do the same. The journey continues. David's journey of self-discovery was far from over, but he knew he was on the right path. He continued to reflect on Elon's words, using them as a guide to navigate the challenges of life. He realized that the most important thing was to stay true to himself and to never stop asking the important questions. The future awaits. As David looked to the future, he felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. He knew that there would be challenges ahead, but he also knew that he had the tools to overcome them. With Elon's words echoing in his mind, he stepped forward into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The story of Elon Musk and David Carter was far from over, but one thing was certain. Their conversation had changed both of their lives forever. And as they continued on their respective journeys, they carried with them the lessons they had learned, forever shaped by the power of a single conversation. The turning point. As the interview continued, Elon's questions became more introspective, peeling back layers of David's carefully constructed persona. David, when was the last time you truly felt alive? David hesitated, his mind racing. I'm not sure. It's been a while, he admitted, his voice tinged with regret. Elon leaned forward, his gaze piercing. Life is short, David. Don't let it pass you by while you're busy chasing success. The audience, moved by the raw honesty, remained silent. David, feeling the weight of Elon's words, nodded slowly. You're right. I think I've been running on autopilot for too long. A glimpse of hope. Elon's tone softened, offering a glimmer of hope. It's never too late to make a change, David. The first step is recognizing what's missing. David wiped his eyes, a small smile forming. Thank you, Elon. I think I needed to hear that. The audience erupted into applause, sensing the profound impact of the conversation. Elon, ever the visionary, added, we all need a wake-up call sometimes. The question is, what will you do with it? The aftermath. As the show ended, David sat in silence, reflecting on the conversation. Elon's words echoed in his mind, stirring something deep within him. He realized that he had been neglecting his own needs in pursuit of success. That night, David made a decision. He would take a step back, reevaluate his priorities, and focus on what truly mattered. The journey ahead would not be easy, but he was ready to embrace the challenge. A new beginning. The next morning, David woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. He began to make changes in his life, starting with small, intentional steps. He spent more time with his family, reconnected with old friends, and even took up a new hobby. The transformation was gradual but noticeable. Those closest to him could see the change in his demeanor. He was happier, more present, and more fulfilled. The ripple effect. David's newfound perspective began to influence those around him. His colleagues noticed the shift and started to reflect on their own lives. The ripple effect of Elon's words spread, touching the lives of countless individuals. One day, a young intern approached David, tears in her eyes. "Your story inspired me to make changes in my own life." "Thank you," she said. David, moved by her words, realized the power of vulnerability and authenticity. A legacy in the making. As the weeks turned into months, David began to think more about the legacy he wanted to leave behind. He realized that it wasn't about fame or success, but about the impact he could have on others. He started using his platform to share stories of hope and resilience, inspiring his audience to do the same. His show became a beacon of light, offering comfort and guidance to those in need. The journey continues. David's journey of self-discovery was far from over, but he knew he was on the right path. He continued to reflect on Elon's words, using them as a guide to navigate the challenges of life. He realized that the most important thing was to stay true to himself and to never stop asking the important questions. The future awaits. As David looked to the future, he felt a sense of excitement and anticipation. He knew that there would be challenges ahead, but he also knew that he had the tools to overcome them. With Elon's words echoing in his mind, he stepped forward into the unknown, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. A surprise reunion. Months later, David received a surprise call from Elon. "David, I've been following your journey. I'm proud of you," Elon said, his voice filled with genuine warmth. David, touched by the gesture, replied, "Thank you, Elon. Your words changed my life. I'll never forget that conversation." The final chapter. The story of Elon Musk and David Carter came full circle. Their conversation had not only changed David's life, but had also inspired countless others to reflect on their own journeys. As David sat down to write his memoir, he realized that the most powerful moments in life often come from the most unexpected places. The legacy lives on. Years later, David's memoir became a bestseller that inspired millions of people around the world. The story of his conversation with Elon Musk became a symbol of hope and change. Elon, the visionary par excellence, continued to push boundaries and break new ground. But he never forgot the impact of that one conversation, which reminded him that even the smallest moments can have a profound effect. If you enjoyed this incredible journey, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are more exciting stories to come, and you won't want to miss a single one. Click the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join me as we discover more inspiring stories together. Thank you for being part of this journey.